Hey sneaker friends, as promised, today I'm going to cover the differences between the Nike Epic React and the Nike Odyssey React. Now both have the new React foam in them, but there are slight differences between the shoe. React came out in February of this year. I paid $150 at Nike.com for it. The Odyssey came out a couple months later, I'm not exactly sure when, and it was $120. So right off the top, this Epic React is $30 more expensive per pair than the Odyssey. Let's dig into the details of why that might be. If you recall from my React review, there were three things that I did not like about the React. The main one was this throat opening. I found it very difficult to get my foot in the shoe, especially with socks on. Did they fix that in the Odyssey? They did. So in the Odyssey, you'll notice there's a booty construction and it's not attached to the collar. So it's still kind of a booty, but it's kind of a tongue. But the main point, it allows you tons of space to get into that shoe. So they fixed the first issue. The second concern was the amount of traction on the bottom, and this is twofold. One, the foam that's exposed is supposed to be ground contact foam, but it does in fact wear away. Now, I've been wearing this shoe, I think when I did the first review, I had about 20 miles on it. Now I have over 40, and I haven't been actually keeping very good track, but it's 40 plus at this point. Now, the outsole, I don't think that it has worn away significantly, but let's take a relook at that in about 100 miles. Now, the other issue with the traction on the Epic React is that the outsole and the forefoot and toe, the actual rubber pieces are clear rubber, which I found to be a little bit slippery. Did they fix this in the Odyssey? They absolutely did. In the Odyssey, you're gonna notice this heel rubber is extended further into the midfoot. You have a medial piece and a lateral piece. Now, for the toe rubber, you are gonna notice a difference. In the Epic React, the toe rubber comes down into the midfoot, but in the Odyssey, you're gonna notice that the toe rubber actually stops a bit earlier, and then it shifts into this medial and lateral pieces of rubber in the forefoot. So you do have quite a bit difference in the rubber of the forefoot. The second thing about the outsole is that the rubber is not clear rubber. It looks to be solid rubber. I did cut into it and it doesn't look like it's clear rubber, and so you get better traction. So not only did they fix the wear of the midsole that's exposed, they just exposed less, but they also added more rubber to it. I like both of those things. The third issue was actually the tightness in the midfoot. I found the Epic React to be very tight in the midfoot initially. Now I don't notice it at all when I put this shoe on. The Odyssey though is very, very tight in the midfoot. I think they used the exact same upper pattern and then they put this booty, which is quite thick. It's about 2-3 millimeters thick. It's kind of like a neoprene type material. They put it on the inside and so they didn't give more room for the upper, they actually took it away. So I find the midfoot of this is not fixed whatsoever. It's actually made worse in the Odyssey. As for materials, hardness, the rubber I found to be the exact same hardness. They're both around 70, and the midsole I found to be the exact same hardness. They're both around 35 to 40, depending on where you measure it. So I do not think there's any difference in the material formulas or thickness of rubber or midsole. One thing I will note though, if you take a look at the perimeter of each shoe. So I lay each shoe down and I trace around it on paper and you see this diagram. You can see that the Epic React is slightly wider in the forefoot and heel than the Odyssey. Now, what I don't know is if this midsole, after so much wear, is kind of expanding a little bit, or if they were originally a bit wider. If I got a new pair of Epics, I'm sure I could compare them, but it is something to note. They do look quite a bit different width when you have a look at them. And that width can contribute to instability if it's too narrow, or it can give you more stability the wider it is. So next you'll notice on the Epic React, the rand and the heel, it's this pink area, it's injection molded, it's just very simple, and it's symmetric on both sides. On the Odyssey, it starts out the same on the lateral side, but by the time you get to the medial side, it dips down, right? And so it's a larger injection molding piece, and it's to the medial side of the shoe, so it's giving you a little bit more support. I couldn't tell from running in both shoes. I couldn't really tell right away, but after I get more miles on this, maybe that'll be a difference. Now, one kind of big difference I did notice in these two shoes is the heel counter. So on the heel counter in the Epic React, you'll notice where this blue skin is. That's basically where the heel counter is in this shoe. This is the skin on the exterior. The heel counter is actually internal, but if you feel behind it, you can feel the heel counter. Now, it's pretty soft. I can push into it. I can't really measure it with my durometer because it's just not quite thick enough, but you can feel it's kind of soft. In the Epic React, it is very, very firm. I would say at least double or triple the firmness of the Epic React. So that it's also shorter. So you can see that they carved it in a little shorter. If you can see those, this one is actually brought in a little bit versus this one that extends out. Now they made it firmer and smaller. Again, I didn't notice if that created some heel slide or any issues or helped any issues. So maybe more miles will tell that, but it is a difference. Another thing that you'll notice differently in the shoe, there was some complaints. I know several people that complained that after they wore the Epic React for a little bit, there was a snapping noise. And after I reviewed the Odyssey, I noted that the Strobel in the Odyssey has holes in it. Someone commented saying, and thank you for your comment, saying that the holes were put in because the reason that the snapping noise was happening was that the air was getting trapped under the Strobel. And so every time you took a step, it was snapping, right? It's kind of like when your knee joint snaps and it's air. So that, as a tip, if you have Epic Reacts that are snapping when you take a step in them, maybe cut some holes in that Strobel in there. But that is another improvement that was made in the Odyssey over the Epic React. Now for sock liners, no difference whatsoever. There's just a color difference. Otherwise, they are identical completely. A major, major thing, and I think this is probably the price difference in the two shoes, is the upper material. In the Epic React, it's Flyknit, right? So it's one giant upper that's knit. It doesn't have much of a lining in there, just a little bit of reinforcers. In the Odyssey, you have engineered mesh. And engineered mesh just means that it's engineered to fit kind of the vamp of the shoe. So it has engineered holes in it where breathability needs to be. It's just kind of dialed in to work really well with the shoe. You can see this huge split line that separates the heel or the foxing area from the vamp area. Now, that's a major difference in the two shoes, and generally engineered mesh is a little bit cheaper than Flyknit or a fully knitted upper. So I would imagine that's part of how they were able to reduce the cost, but I also imagine that's why the weight went up a little bit. Of course, the weight on the bottom of the rubber, that is also contributing to an increase in weight. So let's talk about weight. The Epic React, when I started, these were 359 grams total as a pair. The Odyssey, right out of the box, they were 376. So the Odyssey is about 17 grams heavier than the Epic React. And I think that's due to the extra rubber, the extra upper or the extra upper materials that are involved with this shoe. But it did decrease the price, right? So you have an increase in weight, so maybe your performance goes down slightly, and then you have a decrease in price, right? Now, the underfoot feel in both shoes, to me, they feel identical. This feels like it has slightly better traction, but I really don't notice. They both feel that kind of soft bounciness in both shoes. Even after this one's been worn longer, it still feels nice. It's very nice underfoot and for wearing for long-term days. Now, aesthetically, everyone's got to make their own choice, right? Out of these two models, I have two different needs for each one of these. This is my kind of all-day, everyday wear, all black, goes with everything. I can slip it on really easy. This one's like when I want to look a little bit more sporty. I do like both aesthetics, but I can't say that one is better than the other for any reason. I just have two different purposes for them. Now, let's talk about why you might buy this shoe over this shoe. So the Odyssey, if your price point's lower, you might buy this shoe. It's $20 or $30 cheaper. If you typically have a hard time getting into this type of collar, you would probably buy the Odyssey. Now for performance running, I think the Odyssey gives slightly more stability with this piece. So you might pick this shoe if you needed slightly more stability, but stability is not gonna make that much difference, I think, between these two models. I don't think weight would be a factor in picking between these two shoes. I really don't think 17 grams is gonna make that much of a difference, unless you're a super high performance runner. And if you're a super high performance runner, you're probably gonna be in the Vaporfly 4% or Adidas's sub 2 shoe. You're probably not gonna be in this anyways, maybe for training runs or something. Now, which shoe do I prefer? Now, this of course is my own opinion after wearing both shoes. I actually do prefer the Epic React because it's more minimal. I love the fact that it is such a simple Flyknit upper on this tooling. I really love minimal footwear, and so I would pick this. However, this is easier to get on just running out the house. Well, there you have it, the Epic React versus Odyssey. I think both are great cushioning advancements. The React foam is just great. It's a great improvement from Lunar and some of the other foams that are out there. However, there isn't a super big difference between these shoes besides price point and some of the construction. So I think if this is the shoe for you, you can't go wrong with either one of them. I hope you guys enjoy this. Let me know which model you guys pick and have an awesome day. See ya.